thank you all for joining. I am Laura Meyer, the founder and CEO of the New York City-based Amazon management and strategy agency, Envision Horizons. I'm very excited to have everyone here today. I'm having fun looking at the audience list here because I know many of you, some other business owners, some clients, and of course there's some people here I haven't had the chance to meet yet, but very graciously welcome you and everyone. So before we get started, I think it's really important that we all just take a moment and appreciate how fortunate we are to work in e-commerce at a time like this. While I know there's a lot of categories that have slowed down, while others have really benefited from the current environment, you know, we're so fortunate to be in a space where we can technically keep our doors open, right? There's a lot of industries right now that are at a standstill, and I think we are all very fortunate to be in a place where we operate online. So as I mentioned earlier, today's webinar, I'm going to do my best to only speak for about 20 minutes, and then I'll save the Q&A for the end. So today's agenda, the first thing I'll go through is Amazon's new policies and how that can affect supply and demand. I will also touch on immediate sales trends as well as trends that we think are going to be long-lasting as a result. What to do with your Amazon advertising at a time like this, and really what to expect for the rest of the year. And in terms of a potential recession, what that can really mean for your business. Great. So the big policy change this week, of course, was Amazon's announcement to not allow non-essentials to be sent into FBA. I think most of us here looking at the list are fortunate to be within the baby, health and household, beauty, personal care, groceries, scientific, and pet supplies. But there certainly are people here at the webinar where they aren't going to be able to send in inventory. And it's very interesting because some of the conversations that I've had with Amazon contacts, some have actually made it seem like it could potentially be a soft date, that April 5th is the formal announcement that they made, but ultimately it was a decision made to help warehouse workers deal with all the backlog and improve the out of stock rates. And that if they are able to catch up faster than what they're anticipating, then maybe that date will actually move up a little bit. As I think a lot of us have seen, Amazon made a big announcement, I think Sunday night or Monday, about hiring 100,000 new warehouse workers and delivery workers. It's going to take them some time to make those hires as well as train them. But I think it's really important to note that there are some options in the meantime. So as a solution for if your products are being blocked from being sent in to Amazon, the first obvious solution, of course, is fulfillment by merchant. I know for many brands, this is not the ideal situation. A lot of us use FBA because the pricing for fulfillment is often beats a lot of the contracts that you can have with logistic companies directly. But some of the things that we're doing for clients that are unable to do fulfilled by merchant or are at potential risk of going out of stock is that once April 5th comes around, we are very, very prepared to send in emergency inventory as small parcel. Historically, we have found that sending inventory in as small parcel versus LTL can be checked in a lot faster, as well as we're enrolling these shipments in the in-stock Head Start program, which, if you're not familiar, is a program that rolled out, I believe it was like last summer, where if you're using and buying inventory through an Amazon carrier or partner carrier, Amazon will actually make your products available for purchase before they're fully checked into Amazon's system. So this is just a great way that once you are able to send in inventory to really be on top of it, because we are expecting, of course, that once that April 5th date comes to be, it could take a lot longer, especially for LTL shipments, to be checked in. I'm predicting those check-in times to be similar to what you may have experienced around Prime Day or even the holiday season. So really being on top of it, of course, fulfilled by merchant, if you can't send in inventory, is the best thing to do for the time being. But if it's not possible, this is kind of the plan B that we recommend for the time being. Now, I know that there has been some discussion about brands that sit in the middle of categories to try and switch what categories they are currently selling in. So if you have a product that could be, say, a baby product, or it could be under soft lines and apparel, say like baby clothes, there is some talk about people playing around with switching the categories. It's to my understanding that Amazon is actually blocking and not allowing category changes at this time. But if you want to put the bandwidth and the time behind it, you never know, because I think we can all agree seller support can be quite finicky and sometimes you can get lucky. So what I think we all have to be prepared for too is the worst case scenario, of course, with Amazon would be if warehouses and Amazon delivery were to be shut down. Based on conversations I've had and reading that I've done, Amazon is doing everything they possibly can to keep everything moving forward. Like I said, there's 100,000 new employees that they're looking to bring in quite quickly. But I also know that they're taking additional steps to protect those warehouse employees from any exposure to the virus. There was a headline this morning that a Queens-based Amazon warehouse worker has tested positive, but Amazon is very publicly making it known that they're offering paid leave and that they have a mandatory 3-foot separation between all warehouse workers, that they are even doing training within an in-app training tool and other equipment instead of in-person interactions, and that they are shifting break times and doing everything they can to keep their workers safe, which ultimately keeps our inventory moving and our customers happy. So in terms of sales trends that we're seeing, so beyond the obvious of sanitizer wipes and everything that you keep reading about in the news, what we find really exciting to see is the growth of sales in products and categories where it's for at-home use. So everything from toys that are interactive between parents and children, to fitness equipment really taking some dramatic growth within, now that people can't go to the gym and they don't want to go to the studios. We've also seen a lot of growth within the skincare, nail care, and hair care categories. No one is going to the salon or spas right now, and they're treating themselves to some self-care. I think we all, for the most part, live really fast-paced lives, and in many ways, there is an upside to everyone slowing down a little bit and spending more time with their families and doing some things on their own for once. So some other things that we see as future trends is in 2019, Amazon ended with 112 million Prime or US Prime subscribers. According to the Consumer Intelligence Research Partners, that is up from over 100 million at the end of 2018, which is even more than double than the 50 million Americans that were using Prime at the end of 2015. So for me, it's really interesting to see how more Prime members have progressively increased. And I predict that as a result of what's going on, Prime memberships, I think, will increase significantly in Q1. As of writing this, the S&P 500 is down over 30%, while Amazon stock is only down 13%, which you can see in this case, the market still believes that online sales for Q1, as well as Amazon being very aggressive to keep delivery open, is keeping up with the surge of what's going to happen for online and e-commerce. Some other things that I think will be interesting moving forward in terms of trends is within those categories that consumers have preferred to buy in brick and mortar. So those items that people buy at grocery stores, pharmacies, general stores, and even some of the mega beauty stores like Ulta and Sephora, I think that even after this passes, they could all see a huge shift in their consumer habits as these consumers are being forced to buy products elsewhere. I know that, Target has an amazing beauty and personal care business, but majority of that is a significant majority of that is taking place in stores. So I think it's going to be really interesting to see what happens to these brick and mortars as consumers are shifting their habits to Amazon and other retailers that are easily accessible online. The final adopters, as I like to call them, which would basically be my parents who have never ordered anything on Amazon before. They're the type of consumers now that they're going to be forced to learn the convenience of online shopping. And let's be honest, once you get used to 2-day shipping and the convenience of having everything at your front door, it's going to be very difficult for consumers to go back who had previously had within their own regiment to actually go to brick and mortar. In terms of what to do with advertising, so this is definitely an area where it is a bit more custom based on what you're selling, your inventory levels, and what type of goals you have. So I would be more than happy to, if you have any follow-up questions regarding this, I would be more than happy to, answer your emails or questions. But for the most part, if you are in a category that is experiencing growth, we recommend opening up your budgets. I don't advise in bidding up very heavily because that can just hurt your overall performance. But just open the budgets for what is working and don't limit them, and really be on top of any well-performing campaign that seems to go out of budget midday. The other thing to also really think about is if you are having to resort to fulfillment by merchant, potentially consider dialing back your advertising investment. Typically, we see that conversion rates decrease when a product is not Prime eligible. That said, if you are in a category where even your competitors are sold out, or all of your competitors' FBA inventory is sold out and now they're doing fulfillment by merchant, you can still keep the pedal on the metal of keeping that advertising aggressive. And then I think the biggest thing that I think is transferable for everyone is making sure that you take advantage of all of the mobile placements and mobile creative that Amazon has been rolling out over the past few months. So the I know that the in-search video ads are only eligible for those who are brand registered, and it's technically still in beta, but those in-search video ads are fantastic. I've always liked them, but now in this ecosystem, as people are shopping from their couch on their mobile devices, it's a very interactive ad placement, as well as making sure that you're taking advantage of the new sponsored brand mobile creative, which if you haven't seen that yet, I'll try and find some examples that I can send out, but it's just a lot more eye-catching than the old version that is still active and still available. So in terms of a lookout for the rest of the year, the word recession gets way worse press than it should. The technical definition of a recession is a fall in GDP in 2 successive quarters, right? And let's quickly take a look back at 2019 as an example. So these are the actual results for the 4 quarters in GDP in trillions for the US from last year. So Q1 was 5.15 trillion. Q2 was 5.36 trillion. Q3 was 5.41. And Q4 was 5.51, totaling the US GDP last year to 21.43 trillion. Each quarter ultimately grew at a 2.1% annualized rate. Now, looking ahead at 2020, and these are not actual predictions here, but let's say Q2 comes out to 5.35 trillion. And Q3 comes out to 5.34 trillion. Technically, that is a recession since it's 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. But will anyone really see change in their sales? Hardly, especially if you're selling online. On top of this, judging from what we've seen from our suppliers in China, who are all back online and trying to win back missed sales from February by offering discounts on goods and services, the US and other countries will likely do the same. So you could very likely see a scenario where Q1 and Q2 could have negative growth, but Q3 and Q4 have abnormally high growth due to compensate. And the year ends close to what we would have been even without the virus. Now, JP Morgan put out a scenario estimate earlier this week, which said the unemployment rate could spike from 3.5% to 6.25%, which could result in an estimated 4.4 million jobs. Now, I somewhat question how many of those people who would lose their jobs are regular or very large spenders on Amazon Prime. But also keep in mind, it could take under a year to replace those jobs once the virus passes and the economy gets back to full throttle. JP Morgan also estimated Q2 GDP could contract by 14%, which seems high, but their overall 2020 year-end estimate was a fall of only 1.5% annualized. Using the logic I spoke to earlier, this could still, that's still a GDP of 21.1 trillion. And total e-commerce sales, which has been growing at 16% annualized, can easily withstand this type of hit. So, I think there is a lot of pessimistic news out there. And I don't want those, at least from their e-commerce channels, to worry too much and to keep stocking up on inventory, because I really am feeling optimistic and realistic about what will happen starting probably like July, August. I think there'll be a very big boost. Also, for what it's worth, China first reported cases on January 23rd, with their peak cases dating February 12th. Assuming that the US does a good job at social distancing as China, the peak new cases dates for all of us could fall sometime around March 22nd. However, we were slower to get actual tests. My opinion, the US sees peak cases around the first week of April. Not to mention, reported by the Wall Street Journal this morning, there were 0 new domestic China cases as of today, which is also a really good sign of how we can handle this. So as you can tell, our opinion is that the economy will bounce back quickly in a matter of months instead of years. While social distancing may take more time to come back to previous levels, which will impact events and gatherings and well into the summer, the isolated nature of online sales will only benefit from social distancing. We will, of course, keep an eye out for job losses in certain industries affected more by the virus, such as dining, leisure, and travel. Job losses would be the biggest deterrent to GDP growth, but simply put, consumers would have less disposable income to purchase those non-essentials if they're unemployed. Also keep in mind, thousands of companies who were having trouble hiring heading into March will now have an even bigger candidate pool to choose from. I know firsthand, Envision Horizons, we are always interviewing and always looking for great candidates. And personally, because I'm very optimistic of what will be happening moving forward, I'm actually really excited to see what the candidate pool will look like moving forward. So with that, like I said, I wanted to try and keep this to 20 minutes. So from there, I would like to open up the Q&A. So as I mentioned earlier, the Q&A is at the bottom. There is a Q&A little icon. If you don't see it, you can press the more button and you should find that area. So first I'm gonna take a question from Amanda, who has asked, if our sales are significantly higher right now due to consumers stocking up on grocery products, why wouldn't you suggest dialing back search if people are buying more regardless? So absolutely. I actually had this in my bullet points, but I skipped over it. So if you are in a category where, whether you want to call it panic buying or not, there certainly are benefits to rolling back your advertising spend if you already have great organic rankings and consumers are just naturally buying that product. We have done this for some of our clients where we've significantly rolled back their advertising because the product itself is selling itself, and this was a great opportunity for us to then improve margins, but also slow down a little bit of demand as we make sure that we can meet this massive demand that we've received. I think I have one question so far, but let me check the chat as well. Any other questions? Oh, it looks like Tim has raised his hand. Tim, I'm going to allow you to talk. Unless, if you still have a question.
No, I mean, I'm just in that same sort of camp that you talked about. So our product was experiencing a lot of demand, and we had to ratchet back advertising spend. I think it's a good opportunity to bank some profit because you never know what's going to come in the coming months, and so it kind of helps. It helps the organization out from a planning perspective and to have a little bit more of a cash reserve.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's almost like the holiday season right now because we are dealing with a flux in demand. We are dealing with uncertainties of inventory levels. And, even during the holiday season, there are certain clients or products where we may actually even dial back on the advertising for that exact reason because the natural demand of the product is already there, that we want to make sure we're spending our money on incremental growth instead of a sale that would already be happening. Cool. Well, thank you everyone for joining today. As I mentioned earlier, if other questions come up, I will share my, oh, we have another question that came through. So Rena mentioned or asked that I mentioned that I saw an increase in skincare, hair, and nails. Any other insights from the beauty category? So regarding the beauty category, you know, when you just think of the nature of beauty, so when it comes to cosmetics, so anything that people would be wearing for more social reasons, we are seeing a slowdown in cosmetics. Actually, one of our clients earlier today also shared an article from Beauty Trends in China, where China has actually seen slowdowns in lipstick sales because everyone is wearing masks. So maybe we'll see an increase in eye makeup as a result. But for the most part, I think, you know, a lot of consumers are interested in what's going to happen in the long term. I think there could also be a shift within the beauty category of consumers buying more affordable products. So I was actually looking at brand analytics for one of our beauty companies earlier today, and we took a screenshot of their brand analytics demographic section to look at their household income. And we're going to be taking a look to see if that shifts in the coming months. So David asked what your near-term feeling is on apparel and clothing category. So this is, I think, a category that will at least take an immediate hit. Number one, it's a tough category right now because Amazon has restricted this inventory from being sent into FBA. So unless that inventory can be fulfilled by merchant, it may not even be available for consumers. But similar to how apparel and clothing was on Amazon even prior to this happening, I still think the basic items will sell. Basic items being socks, underwear, undershirts, like just, basic clothing that is, the staples, as they call it. I think those will still be successful. But some of the more luxury items, I do foresee taking a hit to what's happening, especially in the next few months. Cool. Any other questions? Well, awesome. Well, thank you again for everyone joining. As I mentioned, if you have any other questions, feel free to email me directly. If you don't have my email, it is laura@envisionhorizons.com. And, I just want to make it clear that, we're here, whether it's a shoulder to lean on, or even just to bounce some ideas. It's a time of uncertainty. We all have to act both rationally but quickly, and let me know what you need.